What do you think the top 10 best performing stocks of the past 30 years have been? Sure, Amazon, Netflix, Apple, Nvidia. But there's a company on that list you may have never heard of. Pool Corp. Pool Corp is the largest wholesale distributor of, you guessed it, pool supplies. Today, we're talking to Pool Corp's former CEO, Manny Perez de la Mesa.
Life is a journey, and you continue to learn and grow and evolve. And the experiences that I've had along the way and the people that I have worked with, I have learned from some what not to do. I have learned from others what to do.
So what's the secret to Manny's success as a leader? One thing's integrity.
You learn that it's a lot better long-term to just do the right thing. And everybody's moral compass is a little different.
Yeah.
There were times where the easy path would have been to do certain things, and I chose not to because for me, that value wasn't there.
This is Ordinary Greatness. It's not a show about building a career through privilege or connections, but about real people who achieved great things and the lessons they learned along the way. Whether you're just getting started in your career, considering a change, or interested in hearing stories from leaders who've made it, this show's for you. First, let's dive a bit deeper into that moral compass Manny was talking about.
Were these parental lessons? Like, where does that moral compass, what's the grounding of that for you?
Well, first of all, born in Cuba. So Latin countries, and this is a generality that is insulting to many individuals like me from Latin America or Hispanic, has a propensity to not do always the right thing, where individuals take shortcuts. And you look at Cuba as a history of Cuba, independent of Spain, it is failure after failure after failure because individuals in certain positions did not do the right thing. So therefore, understanding that history says, I don't want to be like that. So I think that's important.
And you came here where you were 4.
I came to the United States when I was 4 years old, in 1961.
What did your folks do when you came here?
My father went into selling used cars, and my mother worked in a couple of different roles. Ultimately, by the late 1960s, she evolved and started selling real estate. And then my father moved from selling cars to selling real estate as the immigrant population from Cuba worked its way. I mean, initially they needed transportation, so a car was important. And my mother sold, she had a day job, and then she sold encyclopedias at night. So therefore, you needed to get your kids an education. That was, you're feeding that. And then as you get into the mid to late 60s, now there is some semblance of capital. Now they begin to buy homes. And then in this case, both of them moved into there to work in real estate. And my mother did that for over 40 years. My father passed away earlier, but he did that for over 30 years. So,
and I've seen you in other discussions talk a lot about the ethic of hard work. And it seems like it comes from that to a certain extent.
Yeah, you learn. First of all, you start with nothing, right? Literally nothing. And you don't take any handouts. You just work. I remember my father, he worked 7 days a week selling used cars. He worked either from 7 to 7 or 9 to 9, alternating days, Monday through Saturday, and 9 to 5 on Sundays. And my mother typically would drop us off at school at 7 something, and then pick us up around 4 or 5. Then she'd drop us off and then go sell encyclopedias until 8 or 9 at night, come in, heat something up, put us to bed, and start the next day. That's what they did. And that's those were the impressions I had of what you do, right? If you want to move forward and provide a better life for your family.
And would the attitude at the time have been, gratitude to be able to do that in a way?
At Pool, I always talked about opportunities.
Yeah.
And I think, first of all, life is an opportunity.
Yeah.
And then during the journey of life, you have opportunities that come along, not necessarily every day, but come along.
Yeah.
And first of all, you have to be prepared to pursue those opportunities. And then once you have that opportunity and you're in the midst of it, you have to make the most of that opportunity, not only for yourself and those that you are with, but also to set the example for the others that come behind you. In a work context, if you're a real leader, you can't expect anybody to work harder than you. If you are a real leader, there is nothing you can ask somebody to do that you would not have done or would do yourself.
Right.
So those are fundamental things.
Along with integrity and a strong moral compass, Manny's early journey was shaped by good old-fashioned hard work. As a leader, he didn't expect anyone to work harder than him. But when we think about what it means to be a successful leader, what about work-life balance? How do you stay authentic to who you are? How can your family support that mission? And what can you do to continually improve? More on all of that from Manny.
I think leaders today are under a lot of pressure, probably, to feel or to give this persona of being well balanced, right? And there is, back to your point, like, you can't expect anybody to work harder than you, So I just wonder if, like, what you see or you observe of leaders today, and like trying to, I don't know, either mirror their workforce or be under pressure from like a lifestyle perspective, so that they're, they don't just appear to be the person who's just on 24/7, working 24/7.
Well, okay, there's two parts.
Yeah.
Part one is you cannot be somebody that you're not for an extended period of time. You can do a good job acting, but you can't do it forever. And inevitably, people will be able to see through you. So you got to be who you are.
Yeah.
Number two, if you are in a leadership role, and by the way, there are leaders and there are those in a leadership role, there's a high level of energy required to do that, because you have to be hypersensitive to so many things and have and people, and be always on, in the sense that ready to be there, whether it's a business decision or perhaps a loved one of somebody in the company, or whatever it is that happens that day, you have to be ready for everything. So if we're having this podcast now, but we're doing this podcast, and maybe I'll be getting a text and somebody passed away, or somebody's child was in an accident, and it could be part of 5,000 employees at a pool. You have to be supportive for that person. And by the way, in the case of pool, it wasn't just the employees. It could be a customer,
Right.
or it could be somebody that works at a manufacturer that supplies. So therefore, you have to be ready for everything. And you have to be, it is exhausting.
Yeah.
So if you want to do that justice, you just got to be yourself.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you burn out very quickly.
So what would be your take or philosophy on the whole concept of like work-life balance as it relates to that?
The dynamic here is, first of all, you got to really enjoy what you do.
Okay.
Because if you don't enjoy what you do, it's work.
Right.
And I was very fortunate that for, call it, the better part of my career, it wasn't work. Second factor, you have to have a supportive family, especially in my case, wife.
Yeah.
That literally compensates for you from a family standpoint.
Sure.
Third, appreciate that you can't have too many masters. So if you have the family, which is clearly number one, but then you have a responsibility that you enjoy very, very much. If those are your masters, right, then it cuts out other things. It cuts out playing golf.
Right.
It cuts out perhaps seeing friends. So therefore, that's the reality, and it's a compromise, and that is a genuine compromise. So I think that's critical. Having said that, at the end of the day, what's most important is your happiness as an individual. So appreciate that. I didn't aspire to be a CEO. That happened. I didn't aspire. So therefore,
It's interesting.
focus on what makes you happy as an individual.
Yeah.
And understand that if whatever that may be, that there's a certain amount of compromise that comes with that. So if you aspire to be, call it work no more than 35, 40 hours a week, because you want to spend all this time, balance of your time with friends and family, and that's what you enjoy, frankly, you shouldn't be in a senior leadership role, right? Because you're then compromising the enterprise to do that. So, but that's what you should do, because that's what makes you happy, and understand that with that means that perhaps the rewards of being in a senior management role won't be there.
I don't know if you ever got this feeling as a senior leader, but or at least like sometimes I've observed in my work life people that seem to be falling under this bucket of working smarter, not harder. And I was always the work harder. Like I'm just sort of a grunt who works hard. And it's like, I really wish I could do what these folks over here are doing, but I can't figure it out.
No, certainly, by the way, what you learn along the way is how to work smarter and how to do certain things more efficiently to maximize your effectiveness on the professional side, as well as maximize your impact on the personal side. So that's learning. And there were things that I did right on the professional side that was not necessarily the most efficient, but I believe there was a positive trade-off. To the extent that I didn't see that positive trade-off, I would go to the efficiency. So it's just understanding that and figuring things out as you move on. One of my passions is sports, and typically when I would travel, which call it 200 nights a year, after a typical dinner or when I landed at wherever I was going, the next place, around 9, 10 o'clock, that would be my end of my day. I would turn on ESPN and catch up with what's going on and stuff. The dynamic there was, if you look at individuals that are really successful, I mean, you look at a Michael Jordan, you look at a Tiger Woods, if they worked 80, 90% as hard as they actually did, they would still be very good players. Right? Michael Jordan would probably still be an all-pro or certainly an all-star, right? But he wouldn't be Michael Jordan. Right?
They'd be world-class athletes, but they wouldn't be the greatest of all time. So Michael would have had to go to the gym, train, do extra hours of practice. What did you do to get better?
Besides the hours and dedication and everything, I always sought to learn from others. I mentioned history in terms of you learn from history primarily because of others' mistakes from a cultural and evolution standpoint. The other part is in business, you learn from others. And I mean, being a student of business, you learn about individuals and how and why they succeeded, and some of the elements that helped them along the way. And you basically take that in and continuously learn from that, because you hope to become better yourself, and therefore you just put that in there. So you can't shortchange. And by the way, I think learning is a huge gift. When we had our management trainees that were normally, just finished their undergraduate degree, so they're 22 years old on average. You've done whatever 16 years of schooling, right? And you graduated, and hopefully, for your sake, you've learned about 20% about what you're going to learn in your life. Life is so much fuller if you continue to learn. And it doesn't have to be all business, by the way. It can be everything. One of the fortunate things for me was when I was doing both my undergrad and my MBA, was I was working full time and I was doing school at night. So by virtue of doing that, and I was working in an office environment, doing my undergrad, whatever I was learning in school, I was able to apply, and I could see it live, and therefore it became ingrained in me, as opposed to these are theories that you may not get to see or experience, 5, 10, 15 years later, right? At which point that memory from when you took the class or whatever is remote.
When you've reached the level Manny has, leading a successful company, building a long and fruitful career, and achieving what you set out to do, what's next? That's where succession comes in. What legacy do you want to leave behind? How do you loosen your grip on the day-to-day and let the company take a life beyond you? And what lessons stand out when you finally look back on it all? Manny shares that part of his journey and when he knew it was time to step down.
By 2005, 2006, I've been running the company now 6-7 years, which is more like the average CEO term.
That's right.
And there was a, fork in the road. I could have chosen to go run, at that time, a much bigger company, or I could have stayed with Pool. And at the time, it was the board's perspective was that there was no successor inside the company. So the discussions then were, do we bring somebody on? Because I didn't want to leave the company in lurch. But then as we got into 07, really late 06, you began to see some of the headwinds, some of the correction factors that were going to play in, which ultimately led to the financial crisis. So we went through that period, and now we're on the other side. Now it's 2010, 2011. Things have stabilized, beginning to see some headroom going up. And then, just going back in time, in 2014, 2015, it was like, okay, now it's getting to be time, and very open with the board. And again, the thought process, there's no, the successor is not inside the company now. So we have to go outside. And we began a deliberate process, which took about 1.5 years to identify a prospective successor to come into the company, which was Pete. I met with Pete a couple of times. Then he met with the chairman of the company, and then with a full board. And everybody was on the same page of bringing him in as essentially the number 2. So that was all laid out. And I have been supportive, obviously, of Pete. And that obviously over time, he needed to call me less. And by the way, it's almost universally him calling me or reaching out, are you available? Which is great. And obviously, as you would expect, now he's 6 years into the role. He doesn't need to call me that much anymore, right? Unless there's something, a big deal on the side or something that he wants a perspective on. But
how much prognosticating are you doing in that, in the sense of like you do have a future focus for the company of where you think the company is going? How do you match those things?
Well,
what the CEO is going to need and what you think the business is going to be in 5 years. Oh, by the way, nobody predicted COVID. I mean, so I kind of want to table that in a way, but at the time, you must have had a vision for what 5-10 years down the road was bringing. So.
Right. And the other part of that is also Pete and I are almost 10 years apart, 9 years difference. So you also want a fresh perspective. And Pete had grown up in distribution. So Pete, arguably, he knew more about the operational side of distribution than I did. Certainly than I did when I started at Pool. So you want somebody different, but with the right personal qualities, if that makes sense.
Do you miss being a CEO? Did you miss it?
I miss the people.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, in the other activities I'm involved with, I've been very fortunate to connect with great people and work with great individuals. So that is an offset. It's kind of like
it's different.
You lose contact. You don't lose, but you lose contact with these many friends.
Yeah.
And now, but you also gain all these new friends. And I don't call it friends in the call it I look at it as you have relationships of people you genuinely care about.
Yeah.
What I enjoyed the most in really all the jobs that I had in the last 30 years of my career was helping and seeing individuals succeed. That's what I enjoyed the most. And I still get to do that in a different way, without the level of connectivity and frequency, perhaps, as in a pool where you're seeing people regularly. So in the pool construct, there was about 100, 110 roles that I would have regular contact with. By the way, also on the investor side. All those, in my mind, those relationships were great, are great. But again, I've been fortunate to replace in part. But that's what I miss the most.
Yeah.
That intimacy of that connection and seeing those individuals succeed as I did before. It's kind of like you have your kids and you see them and their challenges and their success, which is great. And it's for me, extremely rewarding.
Tell us about a big challenge or two you faced and how you got through it.
The biggest challenge was at the end of 1992, Fresh Del Monte was acquired by a group of investors. And I have been intimately involved in diligence, all the interface and everything else given my role at the time. But as we got into 1993, it became apparent to me that their interests were not necessarily in the best interest of the company. So how to address that? And the easy thing was I could have just looked away, right? Or rationalized, but I confronted it. And fortunately, I reported to the CEO. The CEO was extremely supportive. And we stopped some of those individuals were trying to do.
Stuff.
And and you're very, very upfront and very direct. And that's the right thing to do.
It's character. Because to your point, some people would look away or rationalize or go along with it,
Short term, it would have been great to go along.
Yeah.
But that was really never a consideration. Sometimes when people are just getting started, they don't know which way to go. There are endless decisions that feel life-changing. Where to go to school, what jobs to apply for, how to prepare for your first interviews. It can be intense. Manny has advice for anyone looking to pursue a leadership role.
You think about people today, I don't know, I always forget if we're Generation Z, what we've wrapped back around to, but young people today, they want to, advance different levels in their career. Obviously, hard work, integrity seems, big to you. But when you get to interact with that audience, the trainees at Pool Corp, what advice do you give them? What are you telling them? What are you telling them to focus on?
Pool started a program in the year 2000. It's the initial part of management development program. Very comprehensive. And it constantly evolves as we learn more and continue to make it better. But typically in week one of those sessions, I would come in and meet for like an hour or so and then have dinner with the class of 25 or so. And inevitably they would ask a question like that. What are you looking for in a manager and leader in the business? And then I would say, well, there are 3 must-haves to be successful leader in pool. And by the way, I think in business. And the first one is integrity. And integrity is beyond honesty. So people look at you and say, this is an individual of character. Number 1. Number 2 is you have to work hard because you have to lead by example. Third, you have to be able to work with others. And others extends not beyond those that are like you, but those that are different than you. In that first week, typically I would come in towards the tail end of that week. They would understand personalities. So those are the three must-haves: integrity, work ethic, and connecting with other people. Then the others are other things that may separate you from somebody else, right? Because presumably, as you go through this filter, everybody's going to have those first three. First of those three is intelligence, which is, I define as the capacity to learn. Because the faster you learn, the faster you can compensate for lack of experience or lack of education. Then you have experience, which enables you to see things faster because you have more context and more perspective. And then education. But I think the first three, well, sorry, those first three are core. Core.
There are fewer and fewer, I think, organizations that invest in training and development. They used to. I assume you'd agree in general with that observation. And when you have a lot of people who either like they're looking for that outlet, or maybe they're young in their career, and they decide that they want to put themselves in a position for advancement. Finding an outlet for that, I think, is challenging. And so to have instituted that at your organization purposefully like that is really important. Like, it's a gift.
Right. No, that's why when you look at the succession that's taking place throughout the organization to business unit leaders at various levels, they're graduates of that program. I mean, if you look at 2 levels down from Pete, the business unit leaders that run the company, a majority came from that
Decades
program.
of tenure. Yeah.
Yes. Right. Yeah, they started in the 2000s. I think at this juncture, all of them would have been 2000s, nobody in the 2010s at that level. One level lower, you have 30 or 40 that came from the 2000s and 2010s, and that came from that program. I mean, it's huge.
Now, just for fun, we're going to dive into some rapid fire questions with Manny.
You're a huge sports fan. What's your favorite sport?
There's no one favorite sport.
Okay. All right. So give me what are we watching? All seasons, basketball, baseball. What are we?
Basketball, baseball, and football.
Favorite movies?
You would never think of this in terms of me. I like musicals.
Okay.
And I like rom-coms.
Fantastic.
For example, The Sound of Music.
Yes.
The Way We Were.
Best live sporting event you have ever been to, or moment, like you were there in the stadium, something amazing happened?
I was fortunate to see the New Orleans Saints against the Minnesota Vikings in the NFC championship game before New Orleans went to the Super Bowl. For 3.5 hours, my wife and I were communicating with hand signals because
it's so loud.
It was so loud, and the intensity was huge.
What did you do? What do you do? Health, wellness, how did you keep your energy levels up and take care of yourself?
I could go to the gym, but it was tough to go to the gym if you're catching a 7 o'clock flight and you got to be at the airport at 6. You got to wake up at 5. Waking up at 4 is tough. So I didn't get the exercise that I should have. I mean, I would do occasionally, but not as much. But in my, call it new life, I try to take about an hour and a half, 4 to 5 days a week.
It's good.
I try to walk 5 miles and then lift weights just to stay
it's good.
Kind of okay.
Secret shame.
My wife and I tape American Idol and The Voice.
Okay.
And now we watch them together, right? But it used to be like that we taped those, and then on weekends we would watch the shows.
Have you been doing this since the early American Idol days?
A good 15 years, yeah.
Reflecting on this conversation, there are a few takeaways I want to leave you with. First, don't let great opportunities pass you by.
During the journey of life, you have opportunities that come along, not necessarily every day, but come along. And first of all, you have to be prepared to pursue those opportunities.
Second, all the money in the world can't buy happiness. Remember that.
At the end of the day, what's most important is your happiness as an individual.
And finally, never stop learning. Not just because it keeps you sharp in a rapidly changing world, but because staying curious is part of a healthy, happy life.
The faster you learn, the faster you can compensate for lack of experience or lack of education.
This has been Ordinary Greatness. Subscribe so you don't miss upcoming episodes. Feel free to leave a comment to let us know what you think of the show. Catch you next time.